Hi, everyone. It's Deborah Hamilton. Sorry, I'm a little late. It seems that my computer doesn't want to let me on my Zoom. So I will deal with that tomorrow, but not today. I am back from Florida. It was a wonderful trip. We took it with Junie, which was a wonderful experience. And as we were there, we found that a colleague of ours passed away on Friday. And so I wanted to again touch base with everyone about making sure you follow up with whomever it is who is going to take care of your dogs short term or long term, because the person who passed away had the person who was the executor of her will and take care of her dogs and everything else had passed away 6 months ago. So yeah, it's sort of a pain in the butt if somebody predeceases you that you don't think is going to predecease you. But you really do have to rewrite all of your paperwork. I'm not trying to be a hard butt on this. However, if the person you've put in charge of taking care of your affairs and knows what all of your affairs are, and the person you've had the longest conversation with isn't around anymore, you have to find someone who is going to do that for you. The other piece of this episode and adventure is that this person did appoint a second executor. They just didn't tell the second executor that they were appointed. And you know, P stands for publish, which means you have to let the people know who have to follow your directives. So if you have an heir and a spare, I always want people to make sure that they have 2 or 3 people as backup for the care of their pets. It is an imperative. I mean, everyone here on the call over and over talk about how they have everything in place and then it goes kaflooey. I know, Susan, you were going on vacation and then all of a sudden you were going on vacation, but you didn't have anywhere for Maggie to go. I know Sally has had that issue as well. I know that Connie has heard about that issue, maybe not faced it herself, but it is something you really need to make sure you have an heir and a spare. And if you have an heir and a spare, tell the spare, because it's okay if the first person knows, but as I'm constantly redundantly speaking about, you really need to make sure that that person knows who their backup is, because if I can't take care of Susan's dog, she really needs to let Rose know that she's the backup for me. And I really need to know that Rose is the backup for me too. So I'm so glad everyone is here tonight. I'm so glad you're here to talk about this, because I know that publishing seems so unimportant. However, it is probably as important as finding caregivers. Because if you do not tell the people who are caring for your pet that they're in line to care for your pet, then your pets will not be cared for. And this is what the MAAP plan is all about, navigating that journey that your pet takes when you can't care for it. So without further ado, let me check in with Susan and see how things are going. I know that Sally may be absent tonight because she has thunderstorms and the girls get very frightened during thunderstorms. And Connie probably has a conflict, but we'll see who shows up. But I do want to check in with Susan to see how things are going with Maggie.
She's gotten back a little bit of her barky business.
She's gotten used to being squirted.
Yeah, it's difficult to sustain that because, frankly, I've put the responsibility or the onus for doing it on Tom, and he keeps forgetting to carry the bottle with him. She follows us everywhere through the house. Right. I mean, she is right on top of things. If we move, anything we do, she's right in the middle of everything. And
well, I don't know if you have a dollar store near you, but the dollar store usually has very inexpensive squirt bottles. And you can even get a water gun if you have to. And summertime's a great time to get a water gun because that works well too. But then you can keep them everywhere so that wherever you are, there is something to remind Maggie to not be noisy.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I may even have some of those squirt guns. I never even thought about
Yeah, they're
using
the
that.
little ones, you just fill them up at the beginning of the day. You're not going to use them up, but you leave them in a conspicuous place so that when she's naughty, you definitely have something that you don't have to leave the room to go get to make sure she behaves herself, because that's what's imperative. She needs to do what it is that makes everyone's family life really, really wonderful. It's so important to continue the communication on where all of our members' dogs are, because in doing so, we keep everybody encouraged. Yes, I guess over the weekend while we were in Florida, my neighbor called. She had a 11 or 12-year-old golden retriever who passed away. And it was very sad because they are older, and this was a dog that they didn't think was going to go anywhere, because she just was, she passed away. And I felt so bad because I wasn't here to help. And anyone who's had a dog understands that it's important to have someone with you that can help you get through it. I know, Susan, you've lost 2 beautiful Catons, and I've lost an innumerable number of Irish setters. And to have someone there with you who understands how difficult it is to live in a house with the silence. I know that, Maggie has her own idiosyncrasies, but she does bring joy to the family.
She absolutely does bring joy. And, it's taken a while to really break through to that, because she's very persistent. And I don't know, she just doesn't bond with us the way my other 2 Catons seem to.
And your other 2 were boys, correct?
They were boys. They were males.
Yeah, boys are different. I have to say that in every breed, I think every breeder would say boys are different than girls. And so there's that's different. It shouldn't be as different as Maggie is from the boys, but it could be different. And of course, she unfortunately arrived during or just before the pandemic came. So that's always a difficult time.
Yeah, absolutely. I had wanted to take her to one of those puppy training classes, and it just turned out to be too difficult. And so she has missed out on some good
experiences that would have carved her brain.
Yeah, and she's very fearful. I mean, I don't quite understand where that comes from, but I just didn't see that in my other 2 Catons. And she has calmed down quite a bit since when we first got her. I mean, when we first got her, I was like, Jesus, I can't live with this. She was biting us constantly, barking unbelievably. So it's gone down quite a bit, but it still scares me a little bit around other people. And, I have people at my house and not too long ago, and she was barking her head off. And
she whipped? It's always important to make sure you never put her in jeopardy, and never put visitors in jeopardy. So sometimes it's better to, I know she's not good going in a crate or in a room or anything like that. However, it's always good to make sure everybody's safe, Maggie and the visitors.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, she'll go in a room, but not by herself, though. Someone would have to go in the room with her.
So how do you handle people visiting, since she likes to nibble on people?
Yeah, I mean, thankfully, she didn't bite anybody, but she came rushing out and she was barking and,
Well, just make sure anybody who comes to your house, this is the lawyer in me speaking, for legal information, not legal advice, but just make sure you always tell people not to bend down and try to pet Maggie, because she's not that kind of dog.
Right, and thankfully they didn't, and we got through it without any incident, but
Yeah.
it's, it's just a reminder that finding someone willing to live with that kind of behavior is
And
gonna be,
right. And finding someone, if they're not going to live with that kind of behavior, to help transition that dog to another situation is really important, because it's not only that we find someone who's going to take our dogs, because some people can't, but will be close to us, but that they know how to transition the dog from point A to point B. And I think that's what tonight's discussion was going to focus on, with respect to making sure that people know who they are, publishing your protocols and your desires with people, publishing, addressing the needs of the pet, who the pet is, how they react, with the people who are going to be placing the dog. Because Susan perfectly said, I don't know who I would find to be able to help Maggie transition to the next place. But you would have to absolutely be transparent about what Maggie's personality is like and who she should get in touch with. My neighbor I shared lost her dog. And so, of course, I looked around for colleagues of mine in the Golden Retriever world who might have a dog. And one of my friends said, oh my God, this is perfect. I just got a beautifully trained 4-year-old male Golden Retriever back. And I said, well, great. She said, he's great with cats. He's great with children. He's great with people. He just can't be with other dogs because he was bitten in a dog park when he was very young. And so he's very aggressive to other dogs. And I said, well, that won't work. And she goes, what do you mean? I said, because Junie lives right next door. And although there is a brick wall between us, it's not that high that the two dogs could stand on their hind legs and chew on each other over the fence. So that would not. And if this dog is as dedicated to a disagreement, he might go right over the fence, because it isn't a very high fence. They do have an invisible fence, but my colleague said, no, that wouldn't work. We wouldn't want anything to happen to him or anything to happen to Junie. And everybody in this neighborhood walks their dogs past your house. So the other issue that comes up when you have a pet and when you're older is that if you lose your pet, how do you obtain another one? Because, Susan, you and I are perfect examples of wanting pets with us. I mean, even though Maggie's a little bit of a nudge and Judy, will rip my arm out sometimes, I would never want to live without my pet. But if you're in your 80s or 90s, there's a little bit of ageism going on with respect to how do you care for the pet if you're going to go to a rescue to get one, or to a breeder. How are you going to assure that the pet has a great home? I know that I placed one of my 5-year-olds with an 87-year-old woman. She lived to be 97. The dog didn't live that long because she was 5 when she got her. So she lived to be 11. So she outlived the dog, this woman, and she was so thrilled that she had the dog. And they actually got another dog from a shelter after my dog passed away. But you shouldn't really hold it against people if they're older, that they shouldn't get a new dog, because it has so many fabulous health benefits for people. But again, you need to make sure that you get people lined up. As I said to my neighbor, if they need somebody who is the heir and the spare, I'm right next door. If something happens, I'm happy to take care of the dog. So when you are older and you want to get a pet, don't be angry, that the rescues or the shelters might have a little bit of pushback, because they don't want the dog to come live with you for a year or 2 or 3 and then have to be rehomed again, because that really wreaks havoc on the animal. However, the animal shouldn't have the possibility of a great home, lose the opportunity of a great home because the person's older. We really just have to be creative and see if we have, children or neighbors who will step in and fill the void if something were to happen to them. So it really is important to make sure that when you are writing your MAP plan, you're going to make the plan. You're going to decide how your pets are cared for. You're going to address the needs of your pet, whether they are going to pull like Junie or whether they might be a little nippy like Maggie. You've got to put all of that down, any medications they have, and update it every year because every year they change. You have to appoint the caregivers. Don't presume that somebody knows that they are appointed. As I said, this woman passed away and her executor passed away before her. She never updated her will. She never updated anything with her attorney to let him know that the first person who he was supposed to call was now, beat her to heaven. So he had to call someone who said, I have no idea what she wanted. And so the attorney really doesn't like those answers because attorneys really want you to make a plan for the care of your pet that you want so that they can carry it out, or at least they can call the people to carry it out. So you really want to make sure you have this plan. And finally, of course, make sure you publish these plans with not only your attorney and maybe your executor, but everyone who might have a need to help you carry out your plan. So for you, Susan, it would be with your husband and your son and your attorney who makes the plan, the caregivers who hopefully you find, because I know you're working with either the groomers or the veterinarian to try to find people to be interim people. And then, of course, there's always the national clubs if you have a purebred dog. Or the rescues that focus on purebred dogs as the backup. There is nothing wrong with wonderful rescues that help take pets who are, don't have anyone to go to. I know, Susan, you're hopeful that if anything ever happened, you'll have someone lined up to care for Maggie. But if not, you always need to make sure that you leave the last remainder man, the person from the rescue for your breed. For me, it's the Irish Setter Club of America Rescue. And that would be if my entire family and all my friends and Irish setters were wiped out at once due to a tsunami at a dog show or something, then I guess, well, the dogs would probably go with me, so there'd be nobody. But you do need to publish it. And if you publish it, like I've said many times, and as Sally pointed out as well, don't presume somebody knows that they're the ones to take care of your pet because they groom your dog or they walk your dog or, they live next door. Make sure you tell them, make sure you give them a copy of the MAP plan that you want to have carried out so that they know what to do and who's supposed to do what. I'm going to wrap up a little early tonight because actually my neighborhood has a big party and I love going to it. So Susan, any last thoughts or questions?
No, I was thinking that it would be interesting if there was a website where people could actually publish their plan. You could set up an account and that way anybody that was backup, you're not looking for a piece of paper or relying on the attorney, or if people know, and you could have it send out messages, if something happens.
That would be a good idea. I'll have to look into that with Rose, whether or not there's an interest in people having the automatic care. I did have an app for that, which would alert the people who were to be the caregivers and the veterinarian and the attorney in the event something happened to the dog's owner. It would alert all of the caregivers, the attorney, and the veterinarian. I've let the app lapse because Apple kept updating it so much it was more expensive than it was worth. However, I'll look into it. There might be apps out there that enable you to keep in touch with your veterinarian or keep in touch with your caregivers. I'll look into it. I know I had that app, but it was a little too hard to keep updated. So great idea, absolutely, that you put all your information on the app. And then if something happens to you, we called it break the glass, because you would break the glass to start alerting everyone that they needed to step up and take care of your pet because something had happened to you. And it was really a phenomenal app. And then Apple decided to change 2 or 3 things, because I think the first iteration came out, if I'm not remembering it correctly, Rose, I think the first iteration came out around 2012. And then we kept it going till 2015. However, it just was prohibitively expensive for me to keep updated. So unless I hit the lottery, I probably won't do it again. But you're absolutely right. It would be so nice to just have something on your phone like ICE that would let everyone know that you have had an accident and please take care of my pets. So with that, I love you all. I'm so glad you're here. I'm so glad you listened to this. Remember, if you're going to have people in line to care for your pets, let them know. Let them know what you want to have done, and not over a glass of wine, and not while they're grooming your dog. Give them the directives, because otherwise it's not going to happen. So until next week, I wish you all the best with your dogs. I'm going to go kiss Junie, even though he barked halfway through. And of course, give Maggie a hug for me and tell her not to be so naughty. And the dollar store or Dollar General or any of those dollar stores have either the squirt guns or the squirt bottles. And they're not that expensive. They're like $1. And you can just keep them full. And this way, hopefully Maggie will learn. And hopefully you're getting in touch with some of the people that we've spoken about, Susan, to help you.
Yeah, I will be, I promise. It's just been a really crazy time for me lately. And
I think the moons and the stars are doing crazy things, because it has been difficult for me to get things done as well. So I understand everyone completely. And we just need to keep plugging. So until next Wednesday, everyone have very good holidays. Passover for tonight and Easter coming up for the weekend. Best of health and good wishes. This is Deborah Hamilton, Hamilton Law and Mediation, and of course, this wonderful MAAP community. I'll see you all next week. Take care.